that feeling of like when you've been away on vacation for a long time and then you walk in your house, no matter how great the vacation was, that feeling of sleeping in your own bed, that's what being grounded feels like. So I remember I went through a really bad breakup and I was just heart smashed on the sidewalk, miserable. And when you have that, one, you're so raw and vulnerable, but you also want to close in. And that's when I started doing my energy work on the roof.
But when I tapped into that energy, I started to understand why they say New York is the city that never sleeps.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I could do anything. I felt like Superman when I was grounded and balanced with the energy. Hi, and welcome to Unlocking the Miracles Within. I'm your host, Jeffrey McDonald. We're on episode 20, and we're going to be discussing today sacred practices for grounding and balancing. And I have a good friend of mine here, Marjorie Fein. I'm so blessed to have her. I've been really lucky this season with everyone who I've thought of kind of as a first for these sessions said yes, thank goodness. I think I've had one no, that was just a timing thing and responsibility. So anyway, I've been blessed with that, and I'm extremely blessed. Margie, well, I'll say Marjorie.
You can say Margie. That's
Margie,
cool,
I call her Margie, but we met, many years ago. She was actually one of my teachers in Eden Energy Medicine. So, Margie, that'd be about 2015.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been over 10 years.
Nice.
And my days of learning Eden Energy Medicine and then running the company for about 8.5 years. And Margie's an amazing healer, an amazing teacher, and she just doesn't teach Eden Energy Medicine. She has a lot going on in her world. She's a mentor, a coach, a person who uplifts others, and somebody who definitely, in my mind, knows about grounding and balancing. And we're going to be excited to share some tips and techniques here with you today. So, Margie, welcome to the show. I know I'm blessed to have you, so thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jeffrey. I appreciate you asking me, and any opportunity to commune with an old energy medicine cohort and talk about energy work and spirituality. I'm in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm excited because with these amazing, I call them wisdom keepers, and Margie's one of them. You never know what comes out, so we're gonna let God guide this, and hopefully some cool and new techniques for you. And first, just to understand, why grounding is important. But I wanted to mention, Margie just mentioned to me before we started the call that, or started the show, that she actually lives in a church now. So if you look behind her, she was showing me the beams. Yeah, an old Methodist church you mentioned, right?
Yeah,
That's
1860.
That is so awesome. She lives in New York, upstate New York. So that is pretty cool. Anyway, I just found that's kind of neat. So, Margie, you and I have known each other for a long time, but I'm sure there are many things I don't know about you. So I kind of want to go back in the time capsule and maybe talk about like well, you had to have a day, I did, right, where you were ungrounded and maybe not balanced.
Maybe one.
Yeah, so maybe talk about the time where Margie, the before Margie, and when you found these techniques and how you began to ground and balance, kind of get us.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it's interesting because I was brought up in New York City, in Brooklyn, and my entire life I lived on the fourth floor. My childhood home was on the fourth floor, and then when I had my own place for 20 years, I lived on the fourth floor. And so your feet are never on the ground. And if they're on the ground in New York, they are very rarely on dirt. They're on cement. And so that's something, I mean, the beauty of that is that I had to figure out how to be grounded regardless of where I was, because I live in the country now, but I moved here 5 years ago. So from age 0 to 60, I lived on concrete, and from 60 to 66 now, I've been living in the country. So most of my years have been spent on concrete. And so always, despite being a city girl, being in nature was huge for me. And I lived near a giant park called Prospect Park, the sister park to Central Park in Manhattan. And I will tell you that there were days that I would go there and take off my shoes and walk barefoot in the city park, just just disassociating from anything that might be on the ground there, because there's a
Yeah.
lot. But I was willing to do that. Even this was before I even knew about energy medicine.
Wow.
I could tell that that did something for me. And also, in the last place I lived, the last 20 years of my time in New York, we had a roof deck that I called my top 40, and I started growing stuff up there. And even though that was even higher than my apartment, being outside, I had probably 50 pots of different sorts of plants, things that I ate, flowers, etc. And it
Mhm.
overlooked the whole city skyline, and I could see the
Right.
water. And even just, and I would go up there multiple times a day during any month that was possible, just to look at plants, touch the dirt, be under the sky, whether it was the sun or the moon, see the horizon and see the water. And that was huge for me. When I moved upstate, my Brooklyn friends have said I've gone totally feral, which I think is absolutely true and fair. And that's just opened up a whole different level. But again, from the beginning, I always gravitated to it, just didn't know the reasoning behind it.
The what popped into my head is I'll tell you a little story, and you can tell me kind of your experience because you've been a lifelong New Yorker, and now you're out in the country. So my wife and I were on a trip to Antigua. It was a very relaxing trip, beach, wonderful, exciting. And we had a stopover in New York, and she had never been to New York, and I had been there a few times. And so I said, well, let's stop in. We had the kids with us. The kids could see New York. So I did the, typical tourist thing, stayed in Times Square. Well, it was only one night. Well, we get into New York, and, I didn't forewarn her. And, I did have the techniques. This is when I was with Eden Energy Medicine. But I had noticed something extremely palpable when we landed in New York. It was this energy, and it was so intense. And I knew enough in that moment that I was like, if I don't ground myself, and we'll talk about that more, folks, that I'm going to be
Yeah.
overwhelmed. And I did not coach my beautiful wife, Julie, about this.
Has she
And
forgiven you?
oh, she was in that moment because of the contrast, she was in just a miserable state for the day that we were fortunate we were only there a day. But when I tapped into that energy, I started to understand why they say New York is the city that never sleeps.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I could do anything. I felt like Superman when I was grounded and balanced with the energy.
Yeah.
And it gave me this palpable understanding of that the difference between an energy of like an Antigua and an energy of New
Hmm.
York City.
Ooh, yeah, that's pretty different, man. One thing that's really interesting about New York, and I think this is one reason why people struggle with the energy sometimes, is that I mean, I lived on one city block in Brooklyn, and there was probably 1,000 people. And I always get the image of the shoe, like of the back room of the shoe store with that there's a little, one box that's slit in with a million other boxes, and that's what your apartment is. You're surrounded by people, but people also wall themselves off. So
Hmm.
in the country, if I pass by someone I don't know, we say hi, we say good morning, we smile. In New York, I do it, but most people do not. So it's this weird combination of just the energy of thousands of people around you, but no one's interacting. And I think that phenomenon is because people don't know how to manage the energy, so they wall themselves off. So understanding energy work was really helpful for me to understand how to leave my energy open, not completely vulnerable to anyone who walks by, but to not be completely walled off. So when you are blocked off from something, the intensity of it builds. And when you have a little bit of healthy interaction with it, it eases. But it's a really weird dichotomy of New York. And you think most people who come to New York are foreigners. They don't even speak the language. They don't understand the customs. It's that much more complicated.
Intense, yeah. Yeah, so maybe take me back to a time. I know you're extremely intuitive and you connect with folks and you've been a healer for so many years. But take me back to a time when you maybe felt vulnerable and like you said, like being in New York, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you built up such a tough skin as a young lady, but like was there a time when you maybe around the time when you found energy medicine, I don't know, where you're like, wow, that this really made a difference for me,
Yeah.
understanding, grounding, and protecting my anyway.
Yeah, so I remember I went through a really bad breakup and I was just heart smashed on the sidewalk,
Mm.
miserable. And when you have that, one, you're so raw and vulnerable, but you also want to close in. And that's when I started doing my energy work on the roof. So I would do it on the roof deck every day. One, just the feeling of expansiveness, and it put me in touch with. So, those of us in energy medicine know that the most powerful movements of energy is the yin energy that comes up from the earth and floods us, and the yang masculine energy that comes down from the earth and grounds us. And that's like our energy superhighway. And so I learned that being outdoors and doing my energy work was like 20 times more powerful than doing it in my apartment. And there was a way that I could hook in. I mean, when you think about Mother Earth energy, she doesn't care what we do to her. She's still spinning around. And the Father heavenly energy, that sun comes up every day and warms us and feeds us. It is impervious to the little puny things that we do. And so being outside and being more directly in that flow. And also, I really believe that we are held by Mother Earth and we are held by Father Sky. And they want us to commune with them. So first it was just, I wonder what it'll feel like to do my energy work on the roof. And then it was like, whoa, that was a really good idea.
Yeah.
And being in that energy. And so, and this description I'm giving kind of came together over time when I would do it first thing in the morning as the sun was coming up, last thing in the evening when the sun was going down. And it hooked me into those energies. And I've never lost that feeling of having those powerful, energetic forces, magical forces there, always ready to accompany me.
So I think that leads us into, maybe giving some people that don't understand what grounding and balancing, you talked about the yin and the yang.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully most folks have seen that symbol of, the white and the black and kind of interconnected. The energies, that's the Chinese way of looking at us in qi and energy and all those fun terms we use for energy. But let's start getting into the practical side and talk about um, yeah, maybe just start. You're such a wonderful teacher. Maybe just start at the basics of how you would describe grounding to a person that has
Excellent.
never experienced that before.
Awesome. So there are two main ways. There are two main ways that we're grounded. One is this yin and yang flow that I just described, and I'm going to stand up and stand back to illustrate that a little bit better.
Okay.
Just tilt so people can. Oops. Let me keep my head in the picture
Yeah,
there.
you'd be the headless horseman there.
That's how I'm not. So I love to describe it this way. When I first went to massage school and I got a massage license, I studied anatomy and physiology. And they have what they call anatomical position, which is how you study the human body. And it looks like this. This is their neutral position that they describe everything from. And it's basically the image of a cadaver, of someone
Hmm.
dead on a table. In Chinese medicine, their neutral position is this: a, an alive human being standing within the dynamic interplay of yin energy coming up from the earth and yang energy coming down from the heavens. So, the most basic yin and yang are the complementary forces in Chinese medicine that create all of life. This balance of internal, bringing things in, external, moving things out, the sun and the moon, the rise and the fall. So, the first way that we are grounded relates to that movement of energy. So, again, yin energy comes up from Mother Earth, it travels up our body and goes out up into the heavens. Yang energy comes down from the heavens, travels down our body, and grounds us into the ground, kind of like the green wire in a house.
Yeah.
So given that, there are two ways that we could be grounded or ungrounded. For some people, that yin energy is not coming in very well. It enters the body. I'm going to lift my foot through the bottom of the foot at this, what's called the kidney 1 point. That's where it comes in. If we get stressed or ill, whatever reason, that point can get kind of closed and that yin energy does not come up. So for some people, that yin energy doesn't come up very well, but the yang is coming down fine. For other people, the yang energy does not come down well, and that goes back into the earth through the kind of this little notch in our pinky toe. So sometimes, for example, maybe the crown of the head is clogged or that pinky toe point is clogged so that yang energy does not come down. So some people are out of balance in both. The yin's not coming up, the yang's not coming down. But for many folks, one is working and one is not. So that's one very foundational way that we are grounded or not. The other is that we have a magnetic relationship to the earth. So when we think of gravity, like we don't float around, we are stuck to the earth. So if we think about two magnets, if I put, let's say, a South Pole, and I'll call this a North Pole, if I put them together, it sticks. But if I put, I'm sorry, if we put it together, it sticks. If I put south to south or north to north, they repel. So the crust of the earth is considered a north polarity, and the bottom of our feet should be a south. So when that's correct, we stick to the earth. Again, it's always because of illness or stress or a sudden shock. Sometimes it can reverse. And then the bottom of our feet acts like a north pole as well against the north pole of the earth. And we repel. It's a gentle feeling of being repelled from the earth rather than gluing to the earth. Was that reasonably clear?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I want to let the folks know that are, because we do a video and audio version, Margie, of the show. So I want to let the folks know that, with this particular, her discussion, she was demonstrating a lot of things. So if you folks are listening to this on audio, you can go check out the video on YouTube. The links are in the post you saw on social media. Or I will do this. I will add some images in of these different points and different images that Margie talked about that you could go download. So don't get too hung up if you're driving and listening to the show and you're like, oh, what is she showing? It's hard to talk about these things sometimes when you're, for audio only. But no, it's going to be available to you, or you can go watch us on YouTube and you can actually see this video of it. So, yeah, I mean that's very clear, and I think
Those are the nuts and bolts of grounding.
yeah, nuts and bolts of grounding. And I think what you were talking about a little bit earlier, you were talking about the heaven and the earth energy, and the whole point is to be balanced, right? To have that energy, because sometimes you could be unbalanced. So maybe talk about that a little bit. What does it
Yeah.
look like, feel like to be ungrounded, unbalanced?
It feels really bad, Jeffrey. So the first thing is, one thing I always love to tell students and folks in situations like this is Chinese medicine considers a healthy human who lives an equal measure of yin and yang. And let's be clear that in our culture, yin meaning repose, rest, contemplation, as opposed to yang, accomplishing, action, doing. Yin is not appreciated in our culture. At parties, sometimes I'll ask friends, how do you feel if you don't accomplish something for an entire day? And most people feel pretty bad. I feel fabulous about that. So just to keep that in mind, that our culture does not support the healthy balance of action and repose. So, usually a friend of mine always draws a balloon without a string that's just floating. It can often be translated as what I feel in myself is just this systemic sensation of a slight anxiety. It's not big. It is just, it's like this feeling when you really feel at home and you're walking around and you just somehow feel comfortable in your skin. And when you're not grounded, it's it's kind of like I always use a New Yorker. I use the example of being like a little kid in Macy's and you lost sight of your mom, you know?
Mhm.
So, and you might see her a second later, but for that one moment, it's like you're disconnected from your mother. And honestly, we are disconnected from our mother and father when we're not grounded in an energetic and spiritual sense, and we feel it. So, when you are not grounded, you might feel a light sense of anxiety, I find myself walking faster when I don't have to, a little bit of a harder time relaxing. I might reach for something else. Like that's when I'll find myself sometimes in it, like using, let's say, scrolling on Instagram or some other way to kind of disassociate or zone out a little bit. Those are the signals for me, and it will be different for different people. But I would say that if you kind of think about how you feel when you just like you're walking, you're doing your thing, and you just feel in your body, in your space, in your groove, and those feelings. And for some, and it usually there's not a reason for it. You know, if I have an upsetting phone call or something, upsetting happens, I know why I'm upset. This is going to be much more kind of existential. Like there's nothing happened. Why am I feeling slightly uncomfortable? It's going to be more that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a couple thoughts I had. Is like you can get thrown off center. I mean, obviously, most people, it's usually the ones close to you, like your family or your loved ones. But as I was telling you about that New York trip, when this all became really clear to me was actually the first, I think it was right after I started energy medicine, and then I went to Costa Rica, and I mean, it just felt like the just the world exploded for me. And I remember that first night, we were in a beautiful resort, everything was fine, and there just things were not clicking, you know.
Mm.
And I remember that first night, Julie and I went to kiss each other, and we bumped heads, and actually my head hit her cheek, and her cheek swelled up, and I thought, oh my God, we're having this amazing vacation. I just now disfigured my wife's face, and so I knew energy work at the time, so I did energy work on her. And fortunately, by the time we woke up, the swelling had gone away, and I was like, thank you. And then I went, okay, I'm not grounded. And
Yeah.
so I had got connected with Costa Rica, and I prayed, and I talked about clearing energies. I did all the things that I do. And once I did that, it was just like a world of difference. So, I mean, just everything went perfect after that
Yeah.
point. So it was so, when you're right, like when you don't feel like you're disconnected, you're not present. And I love the fact that you talked about it being subtle,
Hmm.
but for me, because I think the way I look at it now, when I go to a different place, I always pray and connect and ground
Hmm.
and just because I know I'm in a different energetic framework
Hmm.
than where I came from, and that's an easy way to become ungrounded.
I find it really interesting because anyone would think that being I think you and I were at that class together, Jeffrey.
Oh
Um,
no, no,
or
fortunately, it wasn't that trip.
it's a
This was a
different
trip.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But we
Um,
went. Yeah, we did go to class
but
together.
if you're used to living in New York City and you're used to being contained in a certain way, and then all of a sudden you land in the tropics, I mean, all of this to say that you would think that going from that city to that beautiful, tropical, colorful nature, you would feel amazing. But that's more than what we're used to containing in a
Hmm.
different way. And all of a sudden you might feel more open, and all of a sudden that's a little jangly. So, I find it really interesting, no matter where you go, whether it's from Costa Rica to New York or New York to Costa Rica, there's going to be an energetic adjustment. It's funny. I have two cats who lived in my little 650 square foot apartment for 8 years. And when they came upstate, one of my cats went a little crazy. And
Yeah.
I think it was just, what the heck is all this space and all of these smells and what is going on? And it took her a while to get her. She started like chasing and being mean to her brother, and which they always like had a love fest. But it was super interesting. Now they're in heaven. But it really showed me that even going into, they say when you're a fly in a jar and you take the lid off, they don't know how to fly out right away. You're used to that safety zone. So any kind of shift
Whatever
can
framework
ground
that
you.
you built. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's wonderful. animals is a great, a great way to watch um,
Yeah.
grounding, connectedness, or ungrounding. Yeah, I mean, how many animals when they go to even a different home or whatever, they're just
Hmm.
so, out of
Yeah.
sorts. Anyway, so yeah, let's shift a little bit into again using your amazing teaching skills. I just had this vision of you on the roof doing your exercises. And again, for the folks that are just listening, we'll share whatever exercises that we do here. But I was thinking, like, when you went up there in the morning, what were some of the simple things that you did? Maybe you can show the audience here, like,
Yeah. One really simple one, and this is actually not an Eden energy exercise, it's a Qigong exercise. And I love this one, and I start my routine with it most days. It's really simple. Let me just get the angle right here. And for those of you who are not out there, I'm holding my hands one on top of the other, just like the back of one hand to the palm of the other, kind of right at my groin area. And what I'm going to do is, as I breathe in, this is called a Qigong move, and I use what's called an ocean breath with it. So the breath is in the nose and out the mouth with a sigh. So if my hands are just right in front of kind of my pubic area, as I breathe in, I'm slowly raising my hands up just about over my head, and then I'm turning them so they're palm down. And as I exhale, I'm just slowly bringing that energy down. And this is a fantastic ancient way of getting the yin and yang energy to go, and it feels great. Keep your knees nice and soft. And again, at the groin, palms up, bring the energy in, bring it in through the nose, palms down. Push the energy back down to the groin. And again, inhale, palms up to the head. Exhale, palms down. And this is just such a powerful, simple way to encourage that yin and yang movement before you even do anything else. So that's one of my favorites. Another one I really like is a type of what we call in Eden Energy Medicine a hookup. And what I'm going to do is, let's see how I can show that. So I'm doing this sitting down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit on the top of my hand. So I'm just going to put my hand on my chair underneath my butt, and I'm just going to sit on it with the palm down. And then the other hand, I can do two things. The first thing is I'm just going to hold my crown. And when I do this, I'm engaging the root chakra, obviously, that I'm sitting on, and the crown chakra. The root chakra is deeply connected to the earth. The crown chakra is deeply connected to the heavens. And I'm going to sit with my back straight, and I'm going to use that breath. When you do what's called that ocean breath, it tells your body that you're safe. We never breathe that way unless we are getting into a hot bath, getting into a warm bed, settling with a book with a cat or a dog on our lap. It tells the body to go into parasympathetic. So it's a great breath to use to enhance any energy exercise. So I just have my hands in that position, and I'm just going to do three nice breaths there in the nose. Ah. 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 I love that. And if you want to use a visualization to enhance that, what I do is as I breathe in, I imagine this white light kind of pulsing out from my chest. And as I exhale, I send the white energy down to the earth and up to the heavens. And as I inhale, I bring them back to my heart. So it's kind of like this energy, you're expanding the heart energy, then you're inhaling it down to Mother Earth and up to Father Sky, and then you're exhaling it back to the heart from both directions. So that's an energetic way or a visualization you can use to enhance it, to really always start with the heart energy and then send it down and up and then back again. And it's a beautiful way to get an energetic and, for me, a spiritual exchange with heaven and earth as I'm moving the energy in my body. Every energetic aspect of our body has a yin and or a yang quality to it. So when you move that yin and yang energy, you are giving all of them, every cell of your body, every energetic aspect of your body, you are flooding it with those resources. So don't underestimate the power, the immense power of some of these very, very simple foundational
that's what
practices.
that's what is amazing about doing the energy work, or you call these ancient traditions that have been taught in different ways, like, you were sharing Qigong and how simple it is, and people don't. One of the things I, two questions. One, I noticed you were adding sound to it on your on your exhale.
Hmm.
Is that important? Is there a
It's
particular?
not necessary, but I will tell you that just, I mean, some people don't like making sounds, but if you're by yourself, what the hell? That's what I say. I will say that I think adding the sound enhances it. But if you're someone for whom that feels uncomfortable, it's not going to enhance it for you. So it can just be,
Yeah, you don't have to make the noise with it.
you don't, you can make it a soft, very, very gentle, as long as a nice loose jaw and exhaling completely through the mouth. But if it's not, unless it's really uncomfortable, I would suggest experimenting. Do 3 breaths without sound, and then do 3 breaths. And as you exhale, just imagine that it's been a freezing cold day and you're getting into a hot bath with smelly bubbles in it. And you know what I mean? Like, ah, there's something to that sighing that helps. But again, if something stresses you, it ain't helping, so don't do it.
I wanted to bring up one question for you, and I don't know if we've ever chatted about this, but I had found, because you can't go outside all the time, be like, right
Hmm.
now today is cold, it'd be the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Um, but I had found a lot of my, even before I started energy medicine, but a lot of my prayers and those kind of things were more effective when I was taking a shower.
Hmm.
And so I started doing, I'll do tapping and different energy things in the
Hmm.
shower. Try to be more intentional when I'm connected to water. So that seems to work really well for me. And I know that's a big thing Julie does. She does her daily energy routine, which, by the way, folks, I think I've shared this before on the show, but for those of you that listen to this for the first time, we'll share the link to that. There's an Eden Energy Medicine daily energy routine where Margie and I both learned from Donna Eden, and Margie's actually a senior faculty for Eden Method. She teaches a lot of different things for them, but it's a great, simple 8-minute energy routine that you can do daily that keeps your field clear, grounded, connected. So we'll share the link to that on the podcast notes. But I know my wife, she does that every morning in the shower. So what is your take on that? On
I think it's great. I think that, for anyone who knows anything about 5 elements, Jeffrey's a pretty solid water element. So water's a great element for him. I don't know what element his wife is. I'm a pretty woody and earthy person. So, for example, I will often do my routine, even if it's, I mean, upstate New York, we have some pretty deadly winters. I'll do it in front of the window and I'll look at the trees and the mountains. So for me, that's really grounding. Sometimes for example, I will always light candles there. You can't see, but there's at least 5 or 6 candles lit around my space. So I think it's really, really great to experiment with bringing different elemental aspects to it. Do it while you're looking at a flame. Do it while you're looking out the window and seeing the
hmm,
mountains and the trees. Do it in the shower. I have a good buddy of mine who's a pretty powerful psychic and shaman. And he says every single time that he brushes his teeth, he thinks about how he's cleansing his mouth so he can speak with more truth. And he's washing his body. He's letting all of the negativity and dirt or whatever accumulated to go back into Mother Earth to be reconstituted for something. And he thinks about when he starts to eat, like he always thanks the food and expresses gratitude that he's being nourished. I mean, it's not every second, but it's just how long does it take before you brush your teeth to imagine that you're just washing your mouth? Those little practices are super powerful and they add up. So I think, when you think about being in the shower and that water is pouring over you and cleansing you, moving the energy while you're doing energy work is fabulous. But I just want to broaden that people can find all different ways of playing with that. I often do different practices in front of different altars, and I will often put I'll put different aspects there. Like sometimes I'll just get a little bowl of water and I'll just meditate lightly staring into it. Other times I'll meditate like very soft, like not quite closed eyes, soft eyes, staring at a flame. and it's different. So I say, throw stuff on the wall and see what sticks for you. Because
Yeah.
if you experiment, you're going to see that, wow, that flame really does something for me. Other people, the shower rocks their world.
Yeah, you just reminded me of the main principle that Donna taught us, which is, we're all unique, right? We're all unique
We're
as
all unique. And
yeah.
I do think it's great to see like I have certain aspects that come really naturally to me and others don't. Sometimes I will really lean, like if I'm going through a difficult time, I will always lean on the things that feel more natural and supportive. So then I will always look at the trees and the mountains or try to do my routine outside if the weather permits. But if I'm feeling in a stronger place and I want to try to expand myself, then like water for me was my least prevalent element. And so I started doing something I call nothing to do and all day to do it,
Hmm.
which is a very watery thing. Watery people tend to not like to have schedules. They just drift through the day. And at first it was like, oh man, not again. You'll be happy to know, Jeffrey, that I love it now.
Wow.
So, but I won't do that if I'm in a stressed state. Then I need to lean on my natural attributes. But if I'm feeling a little stronger, then I will stretch myself to some of these others and they become friends. And they might not be my native tongue, my mother tongue, but they are languages I can speak now. And sometimes what needs to be expressed in that language.
And I think what Margie's talking about a lot here, I just had the vision again, so there's the Chinese five elements,
Hmm.
and you have fire, earth, water, metal, water, wood, and each one of those, it's a brilliant system. It really is. And, I'd encourage you if you have any interest in that, you can learn that. I know there's some stuff with Eden. I know Donna's daughter, does a lot with the five elements. I think she has a book out there. You can also take a test and kind of test what you are. What I think is most brilliant about that system is how it ties kind of your tendencies to energetics and emotions. It helps you be more compassionate with differences inside yourself and inside others. I think there's just a beautiful thing to that. But I wanted to say that, um, I think we're all meant to have all the elements in balance, right? So,
100%.
yeah.
100%. It's funny. I still remember, I am a primary wood and I'm from New York. We don't tend to be the most patient people in the world. And I remember like learning about wood. So wood people were very directive. We get things done. We're good leaders and visionaries. But when we're stressed, that can become impatience and anger and bossiness,
Yeah.
criticalness, things like that, frustration. And I remember I was on a line for something in New York and it was taking so long and everyone was procrastinating. I could feel the pressure building. And I was thinking, what is wrong with you? Like, get a grip, girl. And then I thought, wait a minute, you're not just a big old bitch. You're just a wood out of balance.
Right.
Like, I'm not a bad person. I'm just out of balance in my element. And every element is unpleasant when it's out of balance, and everyone is beautiful to be around when it is. So it took the judgment out of it for me. But it also, the beautiful thing for me was that it really encouraged me to start learning the other languages because as a practitioner, if I get someone who's a primary water, like wood people are, there's a problem. What is the straightest arrow between me and that problem? I
Mhm.
just want to look right for the solution. If you're a different element, more fiery, more watery, that's not how you work. So if I want to be an effective practitioner, I need to be able to speak those other languages and understand them. And I know I became a much more effective practitioner because I would start to speak those other languages and people would feel just inherently more understood by me without even understanding why. Like, for example, people who are very earthy, they're not self motivated. They're motivated by their community and by their family. So I might say to them, the healthier you are, then you model that for your family and they get to see that. Or maybe you could do this with your family.
Mhm.
So I would, try to use languages and methods that would speak their language, that would motivate them to take care of themselves. That would not be how I would speak to a water element. So
Mhm.
when you start to learn these languages, not just with clients, but then with other friends and family, it creates these beautiful bridges. And not everyone is like us, So, and I don't want to be just around woody people. I want to be with other people as well. So it balances me and increases my effectiveness as a practitioner and makes me a better friend.
Yeah, yeah. And what I was thinking about was for so there's a bunch of folks out there that probably are listening to this, probably like, well, how does this apply to me? Blah blah blah. You've
Mhm.
had thousands of clients. You've worked on I don't know how many, but I know you've worked on a lot. You've been doing it so long. Um, Maybe give folks some examples of you have clients come in, and I know we used to talk about it at Eden. Most everybody's ungrounded
Yeah.
or unbalanced. How does that show up? I mean, I don't put you on the spot here, but maybe some of the more common ways that shows up for your clients, so people that are listening can go, "Oh man, that's going on in
Yeah.
my life."
Mhm. Yeah. So, and honestly, it's interesting because when I mentor new practitioners and students, and I work with people who are in the energy world, I have to patiently back them up because they want to get to things that they think are more interesting. And I actually, I just want to honestly, this is the perfect subject to bring to me, Jeffrey, because grounding is the very first thing I do. It's like making sure, it's like if I want to plant things in my yard and the dirt is dry and it hasn't been turned over in 10 years, I can have the best seeds in the world. Nothing's going to grow. But when you till the soil and get some water in there and move it around, it starts growing before even you putting your seeds in there. And that's what the grounding is. It's just the soil from which everything else springs, every other energy. So very often, first of all, like physically, I will often see trouble with digestion.
Mm.
Digestion is a very earthy, physical thing that we do, and it's very affected by stress and being ungrounded. So certainly digestion is something, but really like anxiety, depression, a lot of these emotional stressors that people deal with is because they're not grounded. You don't have that inherent feeling of safety. It's like when I lived in the city, I would walk in the park, but I wouldn't walk at night because any public park, any of you out there go to New York, do not walk in the parks at night. But sometimes it would be like dusk, and I thought, okay, I can do this. And it would be this slight sensation of heightened vigilance and heightened awareness. I wasn't quite as relaxed with it. That's the best way I can describe the feeling in you when you're not grounded. So there might be just, people are a little more vigilant. They kind of look for reasons not to feel safe, not to relax because they don't have that foundational way of feeling safe and at home. That feeling of like when you've been away on vacation for a long time and then you walk in your house, no matter how great the vacation was, that feeling of sleeping in your own bed, that's what being grounded feels like. The feeling
Mm.
of eating your own food, of looking at the stuff in your house, being with your pets, that just deep sensation of like being at home, being in the pocket. That's what it feels like when we're grounded. And unfortunately, many, many, many of us don't walk around feeling that way. So I will look for just in their language, their body language, what they're talking about, um, this general feeling of, is this person at home in their life or are they not at home in their life? And that can express in a number of different ways, whether it's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of disconnection, the color feels a little turned down on their TV, like everything's just a little duller, or it's turned up a little too high, it's a little too bright.
Mm.
There's a lot of foods they can't eat. They're sensitive to many, many things. Like it's one thing just to be allergic to goldenrod. It's another thing that every plant, dust, mold, EMFs, all of that affects you. So this kind of systemic feeling, whether it's physical or emotional, about not quite feeling safe and at home.
Yeah, and I had this vision while you were talking about someone listening to the show, they're driving their car and they're like, "Oh, that's me, I'm just having I'm just really off, you know.
Mhm.
Or somebody at work and they're like, well, I can't stand up and do the, the breathing technique or even do
Mhm.
the hookup, right? Because they got
Mhm.
their hands on the steering wheel.
Mhm.
It's like, what can I do right now?
So right now, so for example, if you do that visualization of the energy in the heart, and you can do it one at a time. So you just like imagine this white, warm energy in the center of the heart. And with every inhale, it's expanding a little bit, and every exhale, it's contracting a little bit. You start there. Then when you inhale, you send the energy down to Mother Earth, and you bring the white energy and exhale, bring it back to the heart. Do that a few times. Same thing. Inhale, send it up to the heavens. Exhale, bring it back to the heart. So you can do that no matter where you are. If you're driving, do not do it with your eyes closed. And if you add that breathing to it, just breathing in the nose and out the mouth tells the body to relax. And I will use that. I will be, friends of mine teach like yoga classes and stuff, and they
Yeah.
always say they love when I go because they can tell when something's working because they'll hear me exhale. I can't control it. I'll be like, ah. And what funny thing is, the rest of the room will often start doing it with me. So you don't have to do it with the sound, but exhaling through the mouth with a gentle sigh as you inhale through. But you can just do that visualization, and I'm telling you, that will enhance your grounding.
Yeah, and it's I would say it's something I've experienced with grounding or just being better at sensing when I'm off.
Yeah.
The more you do it, it's like working a muscle, right? Like the more you do it, the more you know, like, oh. And I was you were going through that and I went back to the I was thinking of the driving. Yeah, don't close your eyes while you're driving.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happens to me, especially if I'm on a longer run, is if I am grounded and a car is actually for me an amazing place to connect with spirit. I
Mhm.
think it's because of the I don't want to call it the rote nature of driving, like you're yes, you're attentive and you're
Mhm.
vigilant and all that, but there's not a whole lot of other processing going on other than
Yeah.
driving.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe talk about that a little bit about the spiritual nature of and importance of grounding.
Yeah. So when you think about it, what is the purpose of spirituality? I mean, I think the purpose of spirituality, at least for me, is to feel more connected to all that is, regardless. I'm a Jewish person who lives in a church and who's a bit of a pagan. And I feel very lucky that I was brought up Jewish, but I wasn't forced to go to synagogue. I wasn't forced to get a bat mitzvah. So there was no repelling to that. Um, and so in my spirituality, I will grab whatever works for me and bring that into my life. So I think for me, spirituality is how do I ever more expand my capacity as a human to love myself, expand that love out to others, to expand myself as a human, to always try to be a positive healing force in the world for myself, for my friends and family, for my community, my students and my colleagues, for my community, town, city, state, world, universe, etc. So it always starts with me. And I find that, and so that is and I state that as an intention pretty much every day in front of an altar before I do my energy work. So it's pretty powerful for me. Um, and I'm a human being, and stuff happens and throws me off. And I'm cranky with someone, or mean to someone, or mean to myself, and all of that happens. Stating the intention is very powerful for me. But again, to me, being a real adherent of energy medicine, um, doing that grounding connection to the earth and the sky feels like I am enlisting these unbelievably powerful forces of nature to partner with me in my quest.
Hmm.
So, again, what am I capable of physically? I'm a pretty strong chick. I can do a lot, but can I spin my earth in its axis? No. Can I make the sunrise and the sunset? No. I can't do those. I'm like a grain of sand next to, a monumental mountain, next to the entire earth. So when I ground myself, I am communing with and enlisting those huge forces of nature who are rooting me on. For me, when I enlist those forces, not only am I gaining from them, but they are cheering me on because they want nature. We're part of nature. It wants us to commune and enlist. And those forces of nature are both physical and spiritual to me. They're incredible physical forces that create and move our world, but they're also, it's a mother and a father that is always available to me, and that feeds me. I mean, I don't know about you, but many of us did not have the best parents in the world. If you're lucky enough to have really healthy, loving parents, both mother and father, I hate to say it, but I think you're the exception in life. So for me also to know that that mother is always there and that father is always there that I can tap into and co-create with is incredible. And grounding, those grounding forces, those grounding exercises of connecting and encouraging the yin energy from earth, the yang energy from heaven, aligns me with that.
And I love the intention setting. Your statement is my life statement, which is how do I learn how to love myself more so I can love others more? And that's
Mhm.
really, you said it in a much broader way, but a broader context, but that's really very similar. And I was thinking, you know, it with intention and with visualization and that, like you've been talking about and you've shared in these exercises, is bringing that thing that is greater than you into your body. I do this exercise called swallowing the sun.
Mm.
And, if it's a nice sunny day, I can go outside, of course, when it's warmer, and I'll look at the sun with my eyes closed, and I'll raise my arms and breathe in and pretend I'm swallowing the sun, and then it's going all the way through me and down into the ground. And it's quite amazing when you do it because you do it multiple times. Obviously, it's no set thing for it, but I usually do it three, four, maybe even up to six times. Your body begins to fill with light,
Mhm.
and that begins to then shoot from you, out into the world. And I think that's really what's meant to be. So now we're getting where I always say the plane's landing, and we're getting to the
We
end.
started our descent.
I know, yeah, we're on our descent. Get buckled up. And again, I know I shared this with you before. Go ahead. A lot of times I throw this in the lap of my guests, like, oh, but really, again, just practical stuff. And you shared some really good practical stuff. But if you had to give someone three things, they were in your office and you're going through, and he's like, give them three things they could walk away with today that's going to demonstrably change their life as it relates to being balanced and being grounded. What would you share?
I would have them do that Qigong move with the ocean breath.
Hmm.
I would have them do that grounding hookup where you sit on your hand and you hold the crown. Um, if people want to, let me just think about that a second. I would do the visualization of the energy in the heart and sending it up and down. I also think what in energy medicine is called a hookup is a really powerful one. One finger in the belly button, one finger between the eyebrows, and you just kind of stretch that up. Um, it lines up these two powerful energies. But what I love about those energies, it lines up what's called governing and central vessels. Central goes up the front, considered the yin part of the body, and then governing goes up the back, considered the yang part of the body. But what I love about those when I've studied them more is that I think about this a lot, and it kind of relates back to what we are talking about being in New York or being in different places and wanting to feel safe, but also not wanting to be closed off. Because I think that feeling of being closed off really disconnects us from both our grounding and our spirituality. And so doing a hookup, the yin energy, the central aspect of that is what a big part of that is being able to be vulnerable and really feel an exchange between us and the rest of the world and all of humanity. And I
Mm.
think, given where our world is, this is deeply, deeply important to me, finding ways to connect. What governing does on the yang aspect is that helps us stand strong in our truth, strong in our authenticity, and unable to be moved from that. So if you are strong in your authenticity and firm in who you are, then you are able to be vulnerable and really connect with people, but you need both. And when you do the hookup, it really strengthens both of those aspects. And really, like for me right now, as part of my personal activism, is to look for ways to connect with people, regardless of whether they, for example, I am a New York Jewish gay energy worker. A lot of people would mean me harm in this world. And I am not going to let their beliefs, I'm not going to let that turn me into a hateful person.
Mm.
That's my activism. I'm not letting that pull me off because I believe at the core we are all the same. We all want love. We all want to belong. We all want to feel safe. We all want our families and friends to feel safe. So when you do a hookup and really make that strong, I can both stand strong in who I am and not defend it, just be in it, and I can keep an openness and a softness towards the rest of the world. So it deeply grounds you, but it really enhances, again, that yin and yang quality. And I've gone off script a little bit there, but
But
for me, it's really important. And so
yeah,
I
it's
think
what's
that
needed in the
hookup's a really
world.
good
So,
one.
so folks, grounding and balancing is your first step towards making the world a better place. A
I
better
think
place.
so. I
I
really
mean,
do.
we see it right now. We're watching it right now. With the wars and just people falling into fear, and then you justify your
Yeah.
beliefs and your perspective, and you're taking away someone else's sovereignty for your beliefs, and that unfortunately that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's perfect, Margie. That's perfect. I think it's important to share. So now you have, I noticed we didn't talk about your sense you shared with me before the call. So maybe, you can talk about that, talk about your business. I know they can find you at feinworks.com, FEINWORKS.com, and I'll have all these links that Margie shares
Good.
within the
There's
notes.
something more to talk.
Yeah, but maybe talk a little bit about, and I know scents aren't for everybody, but talk a little bit about what, what that's done in your life.
Yeah, so since I've come upstate, like I say, I've gone kind of feral. I have taps in my maple trees as we speak, and I've started growing things. And one of my favorite plants is sweetgrass. Maybe some people are familiar with Braiding Sweetgrass, the book. And sweetgrass is considered to be one of the highest vibration plants there are, and the smell is really amazing. So if you're someone like me who works with people all the time, and I do my own spiritual work, having a clear, clean, energetic space is really important. So if I have 6 people in my house over the course, I work at my home over the course of the day, I have heard about cancer and depression and all sorts of really heavy things. I want to be able to have that in my home, but then I want to be able to clear it. So traditionally, what folks do, Native Americans, whether South or North, is that they clear the energy first, whether it's with sage or they sometimes use Palo Santo. And what I've done is I've created sprays from them. I like it better than smoke because it clears immediately and it's a much fresher scent. So I've created a white sage spray. So what I do first is I spray the sage over myself and in my space. The smell is divine. And then I spray the sweetgrass. So once the energy is clear, then I can raise the energy. So then I spray the sweetgrass, which just sweetens everything up. And so I started making these and selling them, and folks seem to really love them. And I make some other products as well, but those are my two main things that I use that really work beautifully. And I like, again, better than burning because it's very hard to control burning. You do one little bit of sage and the whole house smells that way. The next person comes in and it really smells. Once you you spray the sprays, the scent is gone within 15 seconds, but the energy has cleared. So they've become a really essential part for me of keeping myself clean and clear and in keeping my space clean and clear. And I have a really deep, ever deepening relationship with plants in the natural world, and I love to bring them in. So my website has a whole store with all kinds of fun things that I have used. If anyone from, I will tell you if you want to, anyone from this podcast wants to go on and use it, use the discount code kinfolk, and that'll give you 20
Oh,
or
I got it.
25% off. I can't remember which one. Very glad to have you
I'll make
guys
sure
take
I have that
advantage
in
of
the
that.
notes for everybody. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know Margie, you teach a lot, you do different classes. Is there anything else going on you want to share?
I'm just about to launch something I've been working on for a year. It's called your Energy Toolkit, and it's a learning platform. It'll be a subscription series. And what it is, it's kind of a one-stop shop for everything energy. So, for example, you'll see a whole bunch of folders on there. One might be physical wellness, emotional wellness, pain management. Also, you can do it via the systems. There's a whole section on the aura, the meridians, the chakras. So let's say you have chronic, let's say irritable bowel. You can go into physical wellness, go to large intestine. There will be a 10-minute energy routine you can hook into. Always a page on like what is the large intestine, how it works physically, and the energetic aspects, emotional aspects of it. And then I've done literally 200 videos of energy
Wow.
exercises. So you can go there and just explore, or you can go and search and just put in constipation, and energy work will come up. Also, if you're a practitioner, there's like a homework assigner. So if you are a practitioner, you assign homework, you can just click on the exercises and then just email it to your client and they will have me doing the videos. So I'm really proud of it. It's in beta testing right now. That's going to be called yourenergytoolkit.com. And that's going to be up and running probably in about 2 weeks. So that's the newest thing I've done. And I'm really proud and excited about it.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, well, let's see. We're broadcasting this on the 28th of March.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it'll be perfect timing for that new toolkit. I'll definitely have to
Yeah.
check that out. We'll make sure we have that on
Thanks, Jeffrey. I
the
appreciate that.
yeah, the notes and everything. That sounds amazing, Margie.
It's
She,
also have it'll have, if I just may one last thing, it'll have a function. Let's say you just want to check it out and you don't want to sign on to the whole thing. There's about 30 energy routines on there. Anything from depression, anxiety, invisibility to gut, bloating, pain, etc. And you can just go on there and buy the individual routines. They're $8 each, or you can buy like a
wow,
package. And that's a way you can just go on there and check it out without having to sign on to the whole thing. We're trying to create as many ways as possible for people just to experiment and explore and to bring
that's
energy
awesome.
medicine into the world.
And I'll vouch. I mean, Margie's an amazing teacher. She taught me. I'm not sure how much I learned, but you know, we
You learned a lot, man.
she's
Don't
she's
underestimate.
done does amazing healer work. Taught many students. So it's a blessing. I'll definitely have to check it
Thank
out,
you,
Margie.
Jeffrey. I appreciate that.
So usually I wrap up the show with a prayer. So I'm going to do
Oh,
a quick
nice.
prayer, and then we'll get to say goodbye, folks. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm so blessed to have you here, and I'm sure the
And the
folks
heart,
picked up
brother.
some stuff. And we're going to do our best to, for those of you that are listening to the audio, to make sure we share enough material where you have some takeaways and we can give you some downloads. So I'll work on that. Heavenly Father, open our hearts, our minds, our eyes, and our ears to all that is you, and guide us, Lord. Guide us, Lord, in the connecting with you, with all of your support, and keeping us grounded and balanced, and keeping the best version of us, so we can carry the mission of your love forward to all who are in this world. And thank you for the blessing of Margie here sharing her purpose, her design, her connection, and opening these pathways for folks to share that universal love. Thank you. In the name of the Father, and in your Son Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. So mote it
Thank you so
be.
much. Blessings. Thank you, Margie. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. This was really fun. And I hope you folks got some great tips. It was really nice to spend time with you all.